When the Heat failed to trade for Damian Lillard, people called them the losers of the offseason. The loss of Gabe Vincent and Max Strus was supposed to be cushioned by acquiring Lillard, but instead, they were dealt another blow when their rivals in Milwaukee got him. While this initially seemed like a disaster scenario for Miami, they've recovered as well as possible. If they had traded for Dame, they would have had to give up Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, and Nikola Jovic on top of picks. Instead, they've kept all of those guys, and as of yesterday, they added Terry Rozier. Sure, they had to give up a first-round pick and Kyle Lowry, but picks aren't as important to a contending team, and Rozier will be a huge upgrade over an aging Lowry. Rozier is averaging career highs in points and assists this year, and at 29 years old, he still has plenty of good basketball left in him. In today's video, I'm going to be explaining how Rozier helps Miami, and why this move could lead to another deep playoff run. Before we get into it, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and your support goes a long way. With all of that being said, let's get into the video. Before I talk about the Heat, I want to discuss Charlotte's side of things. When the Hornets hired Mitch Kupchak in 2018, he inherited a mediocre roster with a star player entering the final year of his contract. All signs pointed towards a Kemba Walker trade, but surprisingly they held on to him and allowed him to enter free agency. Ultimately, Kemba ended up signing with Boston, and to finalize the deal, the Celtics sent Terry Rozier to Charlotte in a sign-and trade. In the post-Kemba era, Rozier and the Hornets have been up and down, peaking with a 43-win season in 2022, and following that up with just 27 wins in 2023. With only 10 wins to their name this year, Charlotte is out of playoff contention once again, making the Rozier trade a shock to no one. While I've seen some people speak favorably of Charlotte's return, I'm not too high on it. The best asset they received was Miami's 2027 first-round pick. The pick is lottery protected, meaning that if Miami misses the playoffs in 2027, Charlotte will receive an unprotected pick in 2028 instead. The thing is, I expect the Heat to be a playoff team in 2027. As of now, only Hero and Jaquez are under contract through 2027, but considering how great the organization is, it gives me confidence that they'll be able to retain their best players. If they can, Jimmy will be getting up there in age at 37, but Bam would be just 29, and the aforementioned Hero and Jaquez would be 26 and 25 respectively. There's a good chance the pick Charlotte got ends up somewhere in the 20s, which is nothing to write home about. The Hornets also received Kyle Lowry's expiring contract, but with how much he's struggled this year, it's more likely he's bought out than flipped for anything of value. On top of that, it's not a guarantee that their newly acquired cap space amounts to anything. Being a small market team, it's hard to attract free agents without overpaying for them. As we've seen in recent history, the Hornets have given massive contracts to Nick Batum and Gordon Hayward, only to regret those moves shortly thereafter. With their cap flexibility, Charlotte could receive draft compensation for taking on bad contracts, but with next year marking the first of LaMelo's big extension, the team can't afford to be ultra patient. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of Charlotte's side of the deal. However, it looks even worse when you consider that Rozier was involved in that Kemba sign-and trade 5 years ago. As I mentioned, the Hornets could have gotten a good haul for Kemba during the final year of his deal, but they allowed him to enter free agency instead. That was the wrong decision by Charlotte, and this mediocre return for the player Kemba netted them is the price you pay for waiting. While this was an underwhelming trade for the Hornets, it was a great one for Miami. Last year, the Heat had the 9th ranked defense, but their offense was ranked 25th in the league. To everyone's surprise, they got hot in the playoffs, and we saw how good this team can be when they're effective on both ends. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to carry that momentum into this season. Once again, Miami is good on defense, ranking 11th in the league, but their offense ranks 20th. This is partly because Jimmy, Hero, and Caleb Martin have each missed significant time, but something else we can point to is Miami's lack of depth at guard. Towards the end of last season, Gabe Vincent took Lowry's spot in the starting lineup. Lowry was starting to show his age, and it was clear that he'd be better off the bench. However, the Heat lost Vincent in free agency, and Drew Smith suffered a season-ending injury early in the season. At age 37, Lowry has been Miami's primary point guard option, and at this stage of his career, he's not able to effectively play that role. In his last 9 games with the Heat, Lowry averaged just 4 points on 29% from the field and 16% from 3. Every once in a while, Lowry would have a solid night where he'd hit multiple threes and score in double figures, but he had too many stretches where he was a non-factor offensively. In comparison, Rozier is a much greater offensive threat. This season, Rozier averages over twice as many drives as Lowry, and his field goal percentage is 8% better. Lowry is much more prone to pass on his drives because he doesn't have the quickness or athleticism to score consistently in the paint. In Rozier's case, he's a threat as a scorer and passer, so he's much more unpredictable in the eyes of the defense. Because he can hurt the defense in numerous ways, he's less likely to force the issue and commit turnovers. Despite his flashy play, Rozier has a turnover rate of just 9%, whereas Lowry's turnover rate is 15%. On top of that, Rozier is the far superior player in the pick and roll. Of players that average at least 2 pick and rolls per game, Rozier ranks 4th in points per possession, while Lowry ranks 47th. When you consider his ability as a driver, his effectiveness in the pick and roll, and the fact that he's averaging a career high in assists, Rozier should generate a lot of good looks for Bam, Hero, and Jimmy. He'll also be able to play well off of them because he's a dangerous spot-up shooter. Rozier's catch-and-shoot numbers have not been good the past 2 seasons, but that's largely because of who he was playing with. In 2023, LaMelo played just 36 games and Gordon Hayward only played in 50. This year, LaMelo had an injury that kept him out for 20 consecutive games, and Hayward has missed 16 as well. With those two missing so much time, Rozier had to take on lots of offensive responsibility, but he didn't have anyone that could consistently get him easy looks. However, when you look at his catch-and-shoot numbers in 2021 and 2022, you can see how deadly he was when he played alongside other offensive threats. With Miami, Rozier will get great looks playing next to Jimmy, Hero, Bam, and Jaime Jaquez. To me, this is a great pickup for the Heat, and it should make them a much more balanced team. At full health, I expect their starting lineup to be Hero, Butler, Martin, Jaquez, and Bam, with Rozier, Richardson, Highsmith, Love, and Duncan Robinson coming off the bench. During the 2020 season, the Heat found success with Goran Dragic as their 6th man, and I expect them to use Rozier in the same way. That 2020 team didn't have a single player average over 20 points, but they still ranked 7th on offense and 11th on defense. Come playoff time, Jimmy and the Heat stepped up their game as they always do, and made it all the way to the finals. This year, the Heat are hovering around a top 10 defense, and once they're healthy and have gained chemistry, I could see them being a top 10 offense just like that 2020 team was. Coming into the season, Terry Rozier was not Miami's prime trade target, but he may be the exact player they needed. In recent years, the Heat have gone on playoff runs due to their depth, and Rozier adds to that in a huge way. Miami may not have the star power that other teams do, but as we know, they take it to another level in the playoffs, and I have more confidence they can repeat their past success after this trade. Anyways, that's going to be all for today's video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. With all of that being said, I'm out, and I'll see you in the next video.